22 years, so only a tiny bit longer than Lucy. Again, fantastic company to work with. That's why I've been here so long, and why I've chosen this company as a place to develop my career. So I have mainly taken roles and been leading teams in technology, so building solutions for our customers and for our servicing colleagues who work in Lucy's team, for example. And now I've recently, in the last 5 months, I've moved into a new role where I am working in risk management, looking after our anti-money laundering capabilities. So that sounds a little bit
Awesome.
mysterious, but hopefully that explains.
Service, I'm sure we can find out a bit more. And then we've got Amy.
Hi, my name's Amy O'Connell. I am a civil engineer and project manager working for Arcadis. That's a design and engineering consultancy. I've been working as a civil engineer for 15 years in various different types of infrastructure, so be it roads or contaminated land. And at the moment I'm working on water projects, so anything in and around building the infrastructure needed to have clean water coming out the taps. And some of my work has been in the UK, Ireland, or I've done some works abroad in the West Bank, Sierra Leone and Tonga. So I'm very happy to be here today.
I'm sure you've got a few stories to tell on that one. And then finally, we've got Gemma.
Hello, yes. So my name's Gemma Hopper and I'm account director working at an agency called Graphite Digital. We are focused on experiences through digital products, so things like websites, microsites, apps. My background is quite varied, but I've always worked in client services, and I've done things like search engine optimization.
Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah.
Let's move forward. To introduce you guys to getting some questions through. So maybe what we can do.
Tom, I'm not sure.
So let's do.
Tom, I'm not sure if you saw the message in the chat, but a couple of the intros were missed due to a technical issue. So if we could just quickly go back and do Simon, Tom, and Caroline's intros, that would be great. Jenny would be grateful.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, mine was very quick, but I essentially work as a sales executive for a marketing agency. So I bring in quite a lot of money for them. And yeah, I really love presenting and helping brands to increase their revenue from certain types of marketing. So yeah, Simon, maybe you can reintroduce yourself as well.
Yep. Hi, I'm Simon Pattenden. I work for The Body Shop. Been there 25 years as an international supply chain project manager. Repeating this gives me the chance to say the sort of things I do, but it's if we need to open warehouses anywhere in the world, that with going out to sort of tenders where you ask multiple companies to bid on their what they're going to do for you, you know, the pick, the packing, that kind of thing. So if you order something from the store, ultimately it's come from a warehouse. So if you order something from e-commerce, it's come from a warehouse, and where that warehouse is and how that stock got to that warehouse, they're the kind of projects that I work on.
Sounds really cool. And of course, we've got Caroline. I'm not sure if I introduced her properly, but she's our signer, so I appreciate it as well. So if that's all good, I think we've covered everyone. Let's move forward. So let's look at the most and the one that's obviously the most topical right now, the last 18 months. Luckily, in a few days, everything's starting to get back to normal. It's amazing. So let's talk about what's been happening in the last 18 months and how that's kind of affected some of you and maybe your positions with and your careers and maybe your relationships within the workplace. So it'd be great maybe if we could start with Lucy. You've got a really amazing responsibility with American Express. So maybe we can talk about how that's affected the customer services and your role there, because you do manage so many people.
Absolutely. So as the pandemic happened, we're an organisation that's that we build our foundations on culture. So there's a lot of interaction with our colleagues and employees across the organisation, and of course American Express is known for its servicing and putting customers first. So as the pandemic hit last year, and I was responsible for the servicing of the consumer customers across Europe, it was just this enormous shift to how to do things, and nobody, including me, knew what to do. We'd never faced anything quite to this scale. We'd experienced, disasters and, terrible things happening where we've been able to serve, but not to the scale where the buildings were shut down. We were sending people home that had never worked from home before. I think the extraordinary thing about it is that we all work together. It's about the ethos in the organisation, and it wasn't sort of anybody working, me saying, right, this is what we're going to do. It was just this entire collaboration and using the best of everybody's skills to say, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to get our people out of the offices, and we need to continue to service our customers. How do we do that? And just go into sort of this mode of, right, let's partner together, and we got it done. We worked with the technologies team to understand how we could set our people up really quickly at home. We sourced laptops and all the technology, like trying to get headsets for people so that they could service our customers. And this was happening globally. So in all my markets, whether that's, in France, Italy, Belgium, we were doing this sort of same activity. I think the most important thing, it would have been easy just to stop and say, we can't, this is too difficult, we don't know what we're doing. But part of the, how we operate and, getting support from one another and really remaining positive with a real determination to get what we needed to get done. We did it, and I think the more every day when we saw, we've got laptops, now we're going to get them home, now we've got our people home, they're safe, and now we can start answering calls from everybody just sort of got energized. We were exhausted, but we were energized by that exhaustion. And then of course we faced, I'll give some other time, but then we faced new challenges. So one, we got people home, I think it was less than 10 days, we mobilized thousands of people home, because it's not just my team, all of the other people in America's home, and the servicing continued. We didn't see significant servicing, and actually our customers were telling us through the surveys that they were even happier than they were before with what we were doing, and that we were there to answer to help them and through their difficult times. But I think the other then element came on resilience, and is how we all adapted to being at home when we were so used to being together. And that, for me personally, I found that I'm a really sociable person. So I love to, I'm in the office today, but normally it would be full of thousands of people, and I would just walk out and say, so it was a huge adjustment. Some people were working in environments that, that had very small spaces and very difficult with lots of other people in their home environment. And so we did a lot of connecting using technologies, a lot of listening and hearing and supporting our colleagues, a lot of resources to support them, and a lot of reflection. Me personally, there were parts of it I really enjoyed and really embraced being at home, spending time with my dogs and getting to walk them more than I ever would have done in the office. But equally, I missed people, and I still miss people. So, but I also think exciting, as Tom said, we're coming back to whatever the new normal will look like. But that's another change. However exciting it might be, it's another change for everybody to have to go through, and we all go through that in our different ways. But yeah, it's certainly been an 18 months I will never forget. I have never had one in my career quite like it before, and I really hope I never have one quite like it again, albeit it's taught me so much, and others, I'm sure. So yeah.
And you've also answered the question, a follow-up, where the customer service being affected negatively, that people are happy with the service. So that's a really good answer. That
it's gone up. It's gone up. Yeah, they've been delighted.
Yeah, amazing. So maybe if we can move to Simon, tell a little bit of story on the same topic. Yeah, we'd love to hear that, Simon.
Very brief, because I know there's some questions coming in, but from a warehousing perspective, so not an office, we had exactly the same with the office. The Body Shop's got offices around the world, and it was the same thing. Luckily, we had teams in place for quite some time, so everybody had headsets. It's just like literally take it all home. But from a warehousing perspective, where to be productive, you've got to be close together, do things closely. It's like, now you're going to all go 2 meters. Now you're going to all wear masks. Now we need all perspex screens. It was a massive challenge because productivity is where you're picking, stuff for the, well, it slashed it in half. We literally had to open another warehouse near to us, and we didn't have much choice because it had to be a certain, and it had pigeons living in it and parties that had been in it, and literally within 14 days we were picking and packing and shipping to our e-commerce and at-home consultant customers. There's a lot of stuff from warehousing to offices where everybody had to react, but for everybody, so it made everybody come together. I think that was the thing, human beings sort of wanted to make a success of it.
Yes, we have a question. What when something isn't going to plan? It's a great question, and I'd love to hear your.
Yeah, so often things don't go to plan. I can say that. Just when you think even something's going to go really smoothly, just doesn't quite work out as you'd expect. And I think that's going to happen, I can promise you, on sometimes a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis, it feels like. And I think that learning to deal with those scenarios is something that you practice and you get better at the more it happens, for sure. So, and I think the last 18 months has taught all of us how to deal with that situation of when things aren't going to plan, both on a personal level and on a work level. So my son is 18, not taken his A-levels because they didn't have A-levels, but he's just gone through a really traumatic couple of years, and things didn't go to plan for any of us. We thought we knew what his last 2 years of school life would look like, and we all had to adapt to that constantly changing. And I think sometimes when things aren't going to plan, you have to focus on what are the things that are within your control and what can you do about them, because there's often things that change your plans that are out of your immediate control, and trying to fight with those and battle with those is not the best place to expend your energy. Focus on the things that you control is really important, and also try and just let some things happen, because in fact when things don't go quite to plan, they can sometimes take a more interesting route that you didn't expect, and you can end up in a slightly different outcome, or the outcome you were actually looking for in the first place. So I think the biggest thing I've learned through my career is sometimes it's not a bad thing when things don't go to plan. I think it's also about, as I say, controlling the things that are within your ability to control. And I think it's leaning on other people around you as well. Don't try and do everything on your own when things don't go to plan. Teamwork is a massive part of our culture at American Express and lots of other companies as well. And I always feel the power of my team around me when things don't go quite as I'd expected them to. And those people around me lift me up and we figure out problems together.
Amazing, yeah. And just to add that, I can 100% agree with what you're saying. And also what you can control is your reaction and your something you don't.
Yeah.
So instead of, negative or really super worried, you can actually filter that within yourself, try and improve that response and be aware of that, how that makes you feel, so that you can be better moving forward. So I love that. We have a question from a student: how closely related are resilience and mental health? I think I'm a lot more resilient when I'm in a good mental health space. What are your thoughts? So Amy, it'd be great to hear your thoughts on that, if that's okay.
That's a great question. I think resilience and mental health are strongly related because, as you said, implied there in your question, you can't be resilient if you're not feeling strong in your mental health. So it's just important to do that bit of self-care, take care of yourself, take care of your mental space, so that if you're getting overwhelmed or getting stressed, you're taking a break, you're taking a pause, and you're doing the kind of things that make you happy. I was working on a construction project, and everything was going wrong. Every day you thought that that's it, that must be the end of the troubles. You got another problem. Varying from our design had mistakes in it. The contractor had challenges. We couldn't get the right materials. There were traffic incidents, all sorts of things happening. And at that point, it really did start to take a toll on my mental health. And I found myself extremely overwhelmed, struggling to sleep at night because of all the pressure. So at that point, I had to just take a stop. And I think that's what resilience is. It's taking a stop, taking a breath. Can I control any of this? No, I can't. So I reached out to my wider team. I brought people in. We had the discussions. We got everyone together. Said, this is everything that's going on. We made a game plan and we worked on it together. And from then on, I was able to be a bit more relaxed in the situation. It was definitely a very difficult 3 to 4 weeks, but after we got through it, started sleeping better at night and everything felt better. So yeah, it's a great question. They're strongly aligned. So make sure that you're always focusing on your mental health as alongside, and your resilience will be stronger as a result.
Can add to that, Tom, as well, because
Awesome, thank you.
a project manager like Amy, I've had the same thing. You get those difficult projects where things just don't go to plan, and one thing adds onto another, and it's like this is now becoming a big deal. Well, it certainly is to you because you feel responsible, although those things are out of your control. So the reality is there's nothing you could do about it. And yes, I had sleepless nights, notepad by the bed. Literally, my arm would just come out with the pen and start writing whilst trying to sleep. And some mornings I would get up and it's like, there's 3 pages here. You know, I knew I'd done a lot, and some of the writings are going into other writings because I'm just trying to dump it so I can go back to sleep. So didn't feel very resilient at that point. So you can't always be resilient. But what I did learn from that is how to deal with it next time. So it's about these things happening. Next time it's going to be a bit easier. The time after that, you know, not going to be a breeze. But you've got to have these experiences. You're not going to go through resilient. You're going to have challenges, you're going to deal with them, and you're going to learn from them, and then you're going to adapt how you approach those things or react to those things next time. And absolutely key.
And if I can just add, I think what's really important that I think has shifted over time, certainly in my career, that much more now, we are all encouraged to talk about when it's not going okay. Where I think historically, I've been working for a long time. I don't think that was the case. But in the workplace today, we actively give permission for people to say they're not feeling okay at that moment, and how do we all help each other during those moments? And I, as a leader in the organisation, am much more open about being vulnerable sometimes and saying, do you know what, this isn't. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm feeling a little bit unsettled about this task. But the more I'm open, it allows other people to realise that we're not machines. We're not, we're all human beings, and we go through our ups and downs, and we have good days, bad days. But the most important thing is utilise our networks. Who are the people that we can connect with, that can help? Who can I talk freely with to say, do you know what, I'm having a really bad day, and I don't know how to solve this problem, or I just, whatever it might be that's on my mind. And that always helps. But having the permission in the work environment and giving others the permission to be open, I think builds resilience, because it gives us, we're not hiding how we truly feel, and we're reaching out for help. And I think that's such an incredible shift in more recent times. And I think COVID has even made that even stronger, and certainly in the culture of American Express, it's something we embrace, is the link with resilience and mental health, and more and more leaders willing to talk about it.
Yeah, I would just kind of following on from Lucy, because obviously with COVID we're all working remotely, so you don't see like behavioural changes in people who may be having a hard time. So it's really important to have that open dialogue. So something that I do with the team that I work with is we have like a separate meeting just to say, how is everybody? How are you getting on? What challenges do you have this week? We try and keep it outside of work, so there's that space to allow them to talk. But But also with resilience, like I think one of the tactics I've learned is to think in the short term, like this isn't going to last forever. So if you think about it in a shorter space, it's much easier because then you're not thinking it's never going to change. So thinking with people, there's kind of some of the tactics that I do to be resilient.
Amazing. Thanks, Gemma. And some amazing insights from everyone. Trying to summarize a few of them. Expressing your kind of vulnerability, like Lucy, you were talking about, really important to get the team on side. I think that's really key, whether it's the family, friends, work colleagues. It's really important to make sure that people are aware of what you're going through a little bit, and therefore you can have the support. I personally, I'm not someone that reaches out very easily, but when I'm in a certain like situation, feeling something, I have, like, there's no way I can go through my day without having or to say I feel this way, that way. So it's really to not bottle things, and I think that therefore helps the mental health side to move forward and take on more responsibility or take on more challenges. And I just really want to say as well that I see that we're all people that we right, and therefore we're perfect for this talk, because resilience is about the actual situations where although we talk about how it can be difficult, like Amy, you were saying, sleepless nights and 4 weeks of mental health affecting you. I think deep down, I think part of you was thriving on the high pressure, because I know for myself, I really like high pressure. Kind of ties in with the resilience. But just moving, someone's asked, why is resilience important? And maybe we can tie this question in, how do you learn resilience? So maybe who hasn't spoken as much, maybe Vanessa, you could talk about that a bit more.
Yeah, so I think resilience is, there was another question as well around interviewing, which maybe we can sort of tie those all in together. I think it's something that when we're looking to hire people into our organisation, or any leader is looking to hire, you want to see an authentic side of someone in an interview. And I think there's a question in here around, is it important to show resilience in an interview? And I think when I'm hiring, I'm looking, as I said, for authenticity from the person sitting in front of me. And I want to hear, I love storytelling. Part of my role, looking at some of our products at Amex, we do a lot of storytelling as product owners. And I think hearing people's stories and hearing genuine examples of how they've dealt with situations is what I'm looking for as a hiring leader. So that doesn't mean someone saying, I was amazing, I did everything right, I'm the most resilient person in the world. It's about someone who says, I had this challenge, this way maybe, that didn't work so well, so I tried something else, and these are the techniques I used, and that sort of thing. So I think that, back to Lucy's point as well around vulnerability, I think actually being authentic, it allows you to show some vulnerability, it allows you to show your creativity, and all those things do come together to form resilience, because it's not just about powering through. I think resilience is sometimes misunderstood as you're just battling through everything. I think it's having other techniques around, like we talked about, leaning on your team, letting other people's creativity help and support you with problem solving. And I think it's kind of incumbent on us as leaders as well to make sure that comes through in our style. So I think it's good to demonstrate how you've learned your resilience, and some of it, I think, like I said before, just comes from life experience, but also some of the most resilient people I've seen in my team are people who are fresh out of university or fresh out of school. And what they bring is a lovely balance between very experienced and tenured people in our teams who've been in the workplace for a very long time. They have a different form of resiliency. They have lots of life experience, lots of career experience. But when you mix that together with, people coming in with less work experience into our teams, it's actually a really great combination. It makes our team far more diverse anyway. It's far more inclusive when we have those differences of opinion and thoughts, and I think it helps us all be more resilient.
Amazing.
So it's a bit of a long-winded question. Went a few out of you.
No, it's fantastic. Question is probably on all of our minds. We've talked about the last 18 months.
Yeah, so here at Graphite, we are kind of already switching to what is post-COVID looking like in the workplace. So obviously I'm in an office right now, but we've got the option to work from home if we want to. So I do think that like after COVID and you know, like Freedom Day and lockdown is done, it is going to be a blended approach. So we're meeting the needs of all of our workforce. So there are some people that prefer and they work better when they're working from home, but there are others like myself that prefer to be in an office. I really like, I'm a bit like Lucy, I'm very sociable. I like to be in a social environment. So I think post-COVID, it's going to be a mixture of flexible working. So a mixture of working from home if you want to, but you've also got the office if you'd like to come in as well. But yeah, I think in a silver lining from COVID, it's brought this great change in the workplace to have that blended approach.
Awesome.
I think.
People should work on the beach, especially when it's so.
I was going to say
like
today is perfect weather.
And then have a little swim in it as a break, you know, just to wake yourself up in a cold sea. And another question from a year: is resilience a key? Is resilience a key requirement to show in your interview? Show this. So I'm not sure if interviewing, but if anyone does, put your hand up. But otherwise, be checking with Simon on that one. Oh, Gemma, okay. Maybe both.
Well, it's Simon. So we don't like when we're going through like interview process. We don't say how are you resilient. It's more asking things about. Tell us about a challenge that you had and how you overcame that. And then you kind of start to do like a conversational unpick from there. So they'll say like, it might be that they say, oh, I had this challenge and I dealt with it in this certain way. So we'll say, oh, talk a little bit more about that. Can you just unpick it for us? So we don't call it out, but it's asking things like challenges, how you overcame that, and asking about scenarios as well, like giving hypothetical issues, saying like, oh, let's say a client suddenly changes a deadline. How would you react to that? And what would your response be? So that's kind of some of the things that we do in the interview process here at Graphite. And over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Jim. I don't actually do interviews. I have done them in the past, but I think for to see if there's any students or thinking, well, I'm not really that resilient. I don't have much confidence. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about going into an interview and thinking I have to be resilient. I think Vanessa sort of put a good point out there, which was she wants to hear about you, maybe how you dealt with something, or why you're not feeling resilient. Again, it's that openness that Lucy referred to about you need to it made everybody a bit more open. Now you can be more open. I know it's easier said than done. Some people don't find it easy to be open, but don't think you have to be resilient to get the job. The questions you'll be asked, I think, answer them honestly, and I think that's probably going to get you further than pretending you're. And yeah, Vanessa said some sort of students that come from university, let's say to the Amex, a bit more, bold, and then they'll go through a journey, trust me, and then they'll become the more of Vanessa's senior team who have gone through that sort of arc, if you like, of feeling be knocked, and then you will get knocked through something at home, life, or work. So yeah, don't worry about not feeling resilient if that's the way you're feeling, because that's okay and that's normal. Just be honest in your interview and give a bit of you across.
To be honest, I think everyone watching is resilient already with the last 18 months having to adapt to that. If you're still, feeling positive about life, then for me, you've already passed a huge test. I even say that in the interview, like, listen, I'm here, I've made it here, and I've got through this crazy. So, well, if only it was that easy. So another question, how do you deal with unexpected changes at work? What are your coping mechanisms? So I think this would be a great one for you, Lucy, because you've already talked about these huge changes and how you coped with them. But maybe if you have any specific story around that or anecdote, that would be really nice.
Yeah, I think so. There's a number of things. There's I talked about a time when I wasn't working American Express. I went to another company, and for the first sort of 6 to 12 months in that company, I really struggled. I had come from being, high performing. Everybody knew who I was. I knew everybody. I knew how to do my job, and I was feeling really confident. And then I went to a company where nobody knew me. I didn't know the industry, and I struggled. I really struggled, one, to be able to deliver what I was used to delivering, and then I struggled to, I think Tom talked about it earlier, about I started to go into that mindset of, well, I don't like it, I don't like this company, they can't see the value in me, I can't, I don't feel like I'm doing a really good job. And so I was in this sort of negative spiral. Don't like the company, don't like the job, they can't see any good in me. And but I spoke to some very good friends, and they shared with me their perspective. And actually then to cope with that, I made some very specific changes. I made a conscious effort to not focus on the negative, but to focus on what is in my control. Somebody else mentioned that earlier. What can I do about this situation? Of this organisation I can't change my leader, but I can change how I'm approaching it. And so I had to, and it was really difficult because it meant changing. It felt like changing who I was, but I did it. I made changes, and then outside of work, I made some subtle changes. I walked the dog. I love camping. There's nothing where I'm happier than with my family or dogs and in a field somewhere with my wellies on, even in the rain. And so I made more of an effort to do those things that relax me and so that I could just step away from doing, being in this mire of sort of feeling negative about my job. And honestly, they sound like small things, but they had a massive difference. I changed my mindset. I utilised my resources. I did things that made me happy, walk the dogs, spend time with family, camping. And honestly, I was in the company 4 years after I'd made these shifts, and I started to realise I needed to change. It wasn't all this other company. I had the best time there, and I flourished. And so the first year, 18 months, was the most difficult I've ever had in my career. I used to cry, and I used to be like, I don't like it. What have I done? Such a big mistake. Honestly, by the time I got to 4 years in, and a job had come up at Amex, I was just like, I don't know if I want to leave her. I love it. And I had grown as an individual, both personally and professionally during that time, because I'd had to learn some really hard lessons about how to deal with difficult situations when it wasn't going my way. So yeah, hopefully that answers sort of some of the things that I do personally and in the workplace to when things don't always go as you think they want them to.
I love that answer, because I was expecting you to say, I decided to get another job because I hated it so much. But the fact that it seems like you you had a different perspective on it, and you put a different angle on it, and then you thrived and you didn't want to leave. So yeah,
I did want to leave after, but I did want to leave at that year mark. But I didn't. I didn't do it, but I wanted to. So yeah, I stuck at it. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, amazing. 2 more questions. It'd be great to hear from Amy a bit more. Amy, you learned from your work colleagues or family members key skills about being resilient? If so, what are they?
I think you can learn a lot by watching the people around you react to how things happen, what happens to them. So when something goes wrong, you can learn from that. So if you see a member of your family and something goes wrong and they just have a flap and they panic and they stress, you can ask yourself, is that a productive way to react? Is that helping the situation? And I think you learn a lot by seeing that. So similarly, on the opposite side, say you have your very stoic, calm father and something else goes wrong. His face just doesn't change. He doesn't react. You're taking it. That is pure resilience. It's like, I've seen this before. I will be able to cope with it. I'm going to take the information in, I'm going to make a decision, and we're going to move forward. And you have that all the time in your career. So I think building resilience really is about, some of it you can kind of learn by reading about resilience and from the experience you have throughout your life, and some of it is just living and things happening and you reacting to them. So yeah, I can't think of a specific example for this question. I'll leave it at that.
Tom?
Yeah, you got the expression, you know that they're like, it doesn't faze them at all.
Yes.
I thought that was nice. Simon.
So, yeah, the question, are there activities out of school that would help me build and show I'm resilient? I don't know if there's something you can do that will show you're resilient, but there's something that you can do that will show how you react, and therefore you will learn from it. I think, so I'm thinking of an example, get up on stage and do a, talent contest. That would be the extreme. Most people are going to go, I'm not doing it. But you would learn how you dealt with that situation, and you're either never going to do it again, or you're going to love it and do it again because it went well. But either way, you're going to learn. So I would say, outside of school, just throw yourself into something. It's almost a face fear thing. Choose something. This is a one-time thing. This is not a job. This is I'll do that and I'll see how I'm a little bit nervous about it. Right, go do it. And then in work we get those kind of things. First time you have to present to your team, or actually your boss and their team. It's like, oh, I've got to get this right. And your heart's going a little bit. How are you dealing with that? Is resilient your heart not beating, your mouth not being dry? Well, it may be. You could argue that actually I was way more relaxed the third time I did it. Am I now resilient? Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I guess you are. Go on, Vanessa, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's interesting the thing about doing things outside school, because that's obviously really relevant to this audience, because you do build resilience through your experiences at school, and I think some things outside of school, they force you a little bit out of your comfort zone, which is what you're describing there, Simon, as well. And it might be you learn a new sport, or you pick up some other kind of, a new activity. And whether it's a try it once, love it or hate it moment, or if it's I'm going to stick at this, maybe if you're part of a team, a sports team or something outside school, or you're learning a new activity yourself. I think that, having those examples you can draw on when you start going out into the workplace, you start being interviewed. I know, people coming out of school and uni have often said to me, well, I don't have any examples, I don't have anything I can talk about in an interview. You do. Even something that's simple, like, if you're part of like a sports team and you've had ups and downs, you've won matches, you've lost matches, all of those things build your resiliency and demonstrate, how did you deal with it? How did you deal with it when the team wasn't playing well and you were the captain, or you weren't the captain, or what did you do? And I think it doesn't feel intuitive that those things are something that would be interesting to an employer, but they actually are, because they say a lot about you as an individual. And there's a question in here around confidence and resiliency, and what's the difference? And I think that's fascinating. I've just been pondering on that one while you guys have all been giving your wonderful answers. And I think when you said, Simon, about you might do a talk to someone and you feel absolutely terrified, and I've been in that situation when I first took over a big team and I stood up in front of them holding a microphone, 150 people, and my hand was shaking like this, literally, and I was terrified, but I was passionate about what I was doing, so that gave me the confidence. Now, I wasn't as resilient to doing that at that point in time. I hadn't built that resilience, and I did over the course of sort of 5 years of doing a lot more public speaking, internally in the company and externally. I built that confidence and that resiliency. But when you first try something, you don't always have that confidence. But sometimes it's that little spark of confidence helps you do something outside your comfort zone. And the more you do it, the more you build up that resiliency. And I remember when I first started traveling a lot with Amex, I was absolutely terrified of flying, absolutely terrified. I held my boss's hand when we took off on a flight to New York once. Lucy, you probably all know who that is as well. I'm not going to. I held her hand because I was terrified, but I knew I had to get on that plane, and I knew I had to go to New York. And I then had to travel a lot on my own, and I just built up that resilience. I wasn't always confident when I got on a plane in the middle of a snowstorm once. on the back end of a hurricane another time, but you learn to get on and do things. So it's a really interesting, I love that question around confidence and resilience. Really great question.
Yeah, and I was
There's an expression.
Oh no, you go on, Tom. You go on.
I'm going to say a quick phrase. As a phrase, do something you're scared of every day. Obviously, within limitations, that's not a free pass to do anything that scares you, but within legal, ethical, moral boundaries. But it's a great phrase. Just do something you're a little bit scared of, face your fears, and you'll then get a bit more comfortable each time. I love that. Gemma, please.
Yeah. So
guys, just to.
Yeah. It was just there was some questions to chat around, like thinking about failure, and I think that's quite a negative thing to think about. If something goes wrong, thinking of it as a failure, think of it as a growth opportunity. So if you have time, there's differences between like a growth mindset, so experiencing challenges and learning from them, or a fixed mindset where you're like, I can't do this. So having that growth mindset allows you to embrace those challenges, and that in turn will help you become resilient as you learn that little bit by little bit as you go on.
Amazing, yeah.
I love that, Gemma. Celebrating your failures.
You should be taken out of the dictionary.
Yeah.
There is no failure. If you keep going, there is no
It's
failure.
not, yeah.
You never give up,
yeah.
you keep going, you try something new. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, just opportunities. Like failure is such a bad term. You learn from them. So it's a growth experience.
Absolutely. No, look, maybe a couple of final comments. Go soon, but maybe I think you want to say to the failure as well. If we have time. I think we need to wrap up. It's been the fun has now passed. Is that right, Jenny? Time for some more questions? Yeah. Okay. I think that means yes. So thank you guys. I really love your. I hope some real value from this. I hope it's really move forward and be more positive. And if you have any further questions, we'd love to answer those. I think there's a way that we didn't reach other questions, but I'm sure there's a way we can do that on a follow-up. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the panel. It's been amazing. Shared some amazing stories, and get to do it again at some point next year.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody.